Bill Wellness Experience, episode 15. Let's go. Bill Wellness Experience, episode 15. I got my guy, Markel Jordan. He's a licensed mental health therapist out of Dallas, Texas. So we're going to talk about mental health issues plaguing the community and the stigma around it and stuff like that. So I'm going to go ahead and bring him in.
What's up?
Mark, what's good, man?
I'm good. How are you, cousin?
I'm good, man. Can't complain. Are you in Texas or are you still traveling the world?
No, I'm in Dallas. I'm at home now. I'm back
Okay.
back to the grind. Vacation is over.
Yeah, man. Every time I get on social media, here you somewhere else. I'm
Listen,
jealous.
look, mental health, self-care. You got to. I'm telling you, got to.
That's real. That's real. I before I always get started on these podcasts, I always want to throw in a little disclaimer at the beginning and say the views, on this particular episode are between me and you and don't necessarily reflect your employer. So piggybacking off that, I know a little bit about you. We got a little bit of history. Why don't you tell the people a little bit about your background and how you got started in your field.
Yeah. So I initially wanted to be a school teacher. So of course, like I went to the University of Central Arkansas in Conway, Arkansas. So my major was history. I wanted to be a school teacher. When I graduated, I took like the state test, all that, but I really couldn't find a job. Like I went to some job fairs. I just couldn't find a job like in teaching. No one called me back. So I was like, you know what? I need to work. So just let me go to work. And so
Mhm.
after I got the bachelor's, I couldn't find a job. I ended up just working at a homeless shelter. Uh, and so that was like my first experience, like working in social services. Like, okay, start working at the homeless shelter, and then started running across individuals clearly who are experiencing homelessness, but they had mental health conditions, they had substance use conditions, and so that just kind of intrigued me. So after about 2 years of working in the homeless shelter, I was like, you know what? A, I need more money, and B, like I'm not really being fulfilled. I need more. And so I was like, let me go back to school. Like, what do I want to do? I wouldn't mind doing like counseling teenagers, doing something with mental health. So I ended up like looking up some programs on Google in 2010, and I found a program and that accepted me, and from there I kind of just took off.
What types of things were you doing at the homeless shelter?
So I was like a what they call a resident advocate. So I was taking taking some of the residents to work. I was making sure they had what their need. I was coordinating with the case manager. Uh, a lot of them were coming off substances or just like maybe just can't afford their rent no more. And of course, that makes you depressed, right? And so this hearing their stories, working with them as a resident advocate, it made me want more and learn more.
That's interesting, man, because I feel like um, the perception around homelessness in the United States is bad to the point that people think if you're homeless, that literally means you don't do anything or you just sleep on
Right,
your bed and you're lazy. But
right.
you've seen people that work, but they're still homeless, and it goes to show you like how a lot of things in this country is off a little bit.
Yeah, I will say most of my jobs have challenged me in my own like generalization or stereotype, right?
Okay.
Homelessness isn't just people under the bridge. Now that's part of it, but that's not all of it, right? And so what I thought I knew about homelessness working there, it's like, oh, it's not what the TV shows show you. It's not what movies show you. Everyone who's homeless is not doing drugs. Some are, but that's not everybody. Some people literally can't pay their rent. They literally lost their job. So, and even if they are doing drugs, even if they did something quote unquote to put them in that position of homelessness, they still deserve grace. right? And
Absolutely.
so working there, it really challenged me in my own views of what I thought homelessness was and who I thought deserved
Mhm.
grace.
But before you started working there, were you kind of like apprehensive about going? Were you like, oh, I want to be around these homeless people? They might try to rob me, or something like that.
Well, not really. I think you know I was initially nervous because I didn't really, I haven't never worked with homeless people just in general. So I don't think I was really uh, scared. Now I will say, working there, I ran across people with like that was my first time running across people who had like severe substance use and mental illness. I never
Mhm.
really seen that like going to UCA. I've never, clearly people were depressed and dealing with stuff, but I didn't see it in that type of lens. So
Yeah.
that was my first time. I remember a guy living there who was psychotic. I ain't never been around no psychotic person before, and so it was really preparing me. Looking back, I didn't know it was preparing me, but it really was preparing me for what I'm doing now. But being around that scared me, right? So just dealing with some of that was kind of nerve wracking. But I wouldn't necessarily say I was scared of homeless people. No.
Yeah. So fast forward a little bit to so you got your when did you get your degree, your master's degree?
2014. That's when I finished. Yes.
And did you start working immediately after?
Yeah. So while I was going to school, I was working for an HIV/AIDS organization here in Dallas. So I was working in sexual health, sexual education while going to school. Right when I graduated, the organization had just got some funding from the state on incorporating mental health, HIV/AIDS, and substance use, all the intersections of that. So
Okay.
I was blessed enough. A lot of people graduate from their masters and can't find work. I
Hmm.
literally just stayed on the company I was at. I just switched roles.
Okay.
So for 5 years, 6 years straight, I worked with individuals who were HIV positive. They had some type of mental health condition and or substance use. So to put it in a picture, they were HIV positive, they had bipolar, and they were smoking meth every day. And so imagine all those three things intersecting. It's a
Mhm.
lot. And so I did therapy, I did crisis intervention. So I did that up until 2014 to 2019. So 5 years.
Okay.
Yeah.
And what type of clients do you see now? Do you have like a general type, or is a specific type of client that you see now?
So I got like three hustles. So I work a lot. So I see everything. I see psychotic from the extreme stuff, like hearing voices, seeing, having visual hallucinations, seeing things. Uh, you know, Jesus is Santa Claus, and he visited me last night. That type of delusional thinking,
Yeah.
all the way to like I'm just depressed because I broke up with a girlfriend or boyfriend, or I'm just depressed because my self esteem is low and I feel like no one loves me, so I'm dealing with depression. So everything from extreme psychosis all the way down to like everyday life stuff, like I need better self esteem. I'm dealing with anger issues, stuff that we all can relate on some level to. So I
Hmm.
see it all across the board.
Okay. What obviously you've been working in the field for a while. Like, what's something that the public like still gets wrong about like mental health and people dealing with mental health issues?
Yep. I think that mental health, people forget or don't know, I should say, that mental health is a spectrum. It's a state of being that we all live in. It's not because when people hear mental health, they think mental illness. I have a diagnosis. I'm not crazy.
Hmm.
They'll know mental health is a state of being, just like physical health. It's a
Hmm.
spectrum. We all what do we do yearly? Most of us do. We do a yearly physical, right?
Yeah.
We're trying to see where we are on the spectrum. How's my blood pressure? Excuse me. How's my sugar levels? How's my cholesterol? I'm checking that spectrum. Mental health is the same thing. We all have a state of being. We live in that. So to put it in context, so you have physical health, something that we all experience on the low end. We all get headaches.
Yeah.
We all get the common cold. We all get a runny nose, get allergies. That's on the spectrum of our physical health. That's the low end. Then you have conditions that need to be diagnosed on the physical spectrum, right? I have chronic high blood pressure I can't get rid of. I have cancer. I have, HIV/AIDS, people that deal with that. I have some type of lupus. Those
Mhm.
are conditions, asthma. Those are conditions that are diagnosed that's on that spectrum, on this end of the spectrum. So mental health is the same thing. So on the low end, if you say you've never been depressed, you're lying.
Yeah.
We've all been sad.
Mhm.
We all been hopeless. We've all maybe had money problems that made us feel less than. That's on the low end of mental health.
Mhm.
Then you get to this other spectrum where, like physical health, I have some conditions, some experiences going on that I need a formal diagnosis, right? Like I've been formally diagnosed by a doctor with major depression. I've been formally diagnosed with schizophrenia. I've been formally diagnosed with bipolar. Again, that's on this other end of the spectrum. Now you are diagnosed with a mental health, well, excuse me, with a mental health condition or illness.
That's a perfect breakdown. I've never heard it broken down like that, but that's can you sort of like diagnose those conditions?
Yes, as a licensed therapist, yes.
Okay.
There's something that therapists, social workers, psychiatrists, and medical doctors, if they're diagnosing, it's called the DSM, the Diagnostic Statistical Manual. So that's something we go by. So we're not just like at the top of our head, like, oh, you got depression. No, like so, no. There's a manual that we go by that says, oh, and it breaks it down. And it's been around for years, and every few years it's upgraded to a different version. But it's like, oh, if they've been depressed this many months, if they're reporting these symptoms, da 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 da, I can officially, as a licensed person, diagnose with XYZ, right?
I remember that reading about that in a couple psychology classes when I was in
Mhm.
college. I was a
Yeah.
psych minor for like a minute, and then man, that shit was too hard. So I, I
You're
don't
like,
even
no,
know
I'm
why I
good.
wanted to minor in the first place. But
Hmm.
so do you? And you may not even agree with this question at all. But why do you feel? Why do you? Why do you feel like mental health issues in males, especially like us, black males, are oftentimes like overlooked or just plain ignored sometimes?
Okay. So, I kind of wrote some stuff down just to break it down. And again, this is my just own personal
Mhm.
opinion in reading and my experiences. So think about like our history. We were brought over as slaves, right? And
Mhm.
back then it was all about, a lot of our ancestors were African spirituals. We get here, some of us, converted to Christianity. And so, so we're going through slavery. Clearly that's nothing but PTSD, right? Well, back then we were more concerned about our spiritual being versus mental health. And a lot of times that's tied together. But back then we didn't have the language for that. And then around like 1900, when research in London and research in the United States, they didn't have the word mental health illness. It was called mental health hygiene. And so when a lot of research started coming up back in 1900s, but their research was more geared toward Europeans or Caucasians.
Yeah.
In the 1900s, we had just barely gotten through slavery and was still being harassed and still. So again, this whole concept of mental health, like we were too focused on trying to spiritually maintain, trying to eat, trying to not get killed.
Stay alive.
Yeah. And so it's like it just wasn't in our community to talk about mental health. And even in the like 1940s, the 1950s, when you started having like the WHO, the World Health Organization, and some
Mhm.
of these mental health organizations start popping up because they start doing all this research in the 50s and 60s. We have shit, black men and black women were fighting Jim Crow. So
Yeah.
when have we ever had access or being concerned about mental health? Mind you, our, our mental health was more about spiritual health, right? If I'm sad, if I'm going through Jim Crow, what do? We prayed, we sung, we went to church, right? And so again, we didn't have this concept of mental health, and so I think our history didn't allow us to be involved in mental health because we were too worried about staying alive and getting justice, right?
Mhm.
Uh, Now, second part is access, right? Think about it. Certain communities, black people, black men don't have access to resources, right? Because mental health is expensive,
Oh
just
yeah.
like physical health, right? And so imagine living in a small town we live in. Ain't no mental health clinic around. Ain't no, so a lot of times people don't have access. And if they do live in a city like a Dallas, like a Chicago, like a New York, certain communities, if they're black and brown people, black men don't have access to mental health. Like
Mhm.
there's no clinics, there's no outpatient clinics uh, in those areas. And if they are the wait time is like 6 weeks, 7 weeks, 8 weeks because
Yeah, yeah,
they're the only clinic in that neighborhood that's providing like a sliding scale or free services. Well, it's this long line, right? So again, black men aren't able to get access. So you have our history, you have access, then you also have discrimination with providers. So you will hear a lot of people like a lot of people say, I tried to go to a psychiatrist or a doctor and say I was depressed, but it was ignored, right? As black people, as black men, providers, unless it's a black provider
hmm
or a black counselor, they don't understand me or they brush me off, right? Uh, or if I'm sitting in a therapy session and I'm a black man with a white person or just a different race of therapist, they don't understand where I'm coming from as a black man. So either so they don't understand, they don't try to understand, or they brush me off, right? So there's discrimination within certain practices, and the last one is stigma. Like I'm a man. Like what? Like I can keep going. The black man has had to put up with a lot of things. Again, from slavery to throwing us in jail for breathing wrong. And, in the 1900s. This is just a lot of generational trauma
yeah,
that the black man has gone through, and so the stigma of I got it. I don't need to be vulnerable enough to share my feelings.
mhm,
There's this pressure from society stigma where it's like black men are supposed to be strong. Black men aren't supposed to be quote unquote weak, right? So you have that type of that society pressure, and then you have the family pressure. Like I'm busy, for instance, your dad. Like I got a wife, I got a kid, I got shit going on. I
yeah,
don't got time to be focusing. I'm good. I'm good. It's like this family pressure. Even if the pressure isn't from the family, it's you putting it on yourself. Like I got to keep going. I got a family. I got to keep pushing. I don't got time to cry about it, quote unquote.
yeah, yeah,
And then you have the stigma of the church, meaning like God will fix everything, right? God will provide. God will fix it. And yes, if that's what your belief is, there's nothing wrong with that. But
hmm
sometimes you need some expertise, right? Because if you had diabetes and they said they're gonna cut your foot off, you would take that insulin. Why
yep,
won't you go see a psychiatrist because you might have bipolar? Why won't you go see a family therapist because the marriage is going through something, right?
mhm,
So I think all those things, history, access, prejudice, stigma, it just keeps black men from getting services, whether it's from the outside pressure or from our own internal ego of like,
mhm,
I want to be vulnerable and sit on somebody's couch and talk
yeah.
about my feelings. That's whack.
Yeah, and I think TV is fed into that too. Because when you think
Mhm.
about therapy, that's the first thing you see is somebody sitting on a couch, and then like the therapist not even paying attention to them, like they pretending to write on a piece of paper. But
Right.
as with TV, you can never read that much into stuff on TV.
Yeah.
It was interesting that you mentioned how society is sort of plagued like the black community when it comes to things like physical health, mental health. Do you feel like as a black man in this field, you have sort of an obligation to like help other people, that's having issues with this?
Yeah. Like when I see as a therapist, when I see black people, I'm like, they're my people, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Yeah. So when I have like black clients, black us as black people, we have a lingo. We get each other,
yeah, yeah.
right? And so I'm always when I see a black person, I'm always trying to speak the lingo, trying to educate them on, like you said, that spectrum. Like, because
Mhm.
the number one thing I hear across these years is I ain't taking that mess. Right? I ain't crazy. like again, that stigma of if I need help,
Yep.
I'm crazy. And I always have to explain, like, it's not like the TV shows you, right?
Hmm.
That's TV, that's entertainment. You're not foaming at the mouth, you're not scratching under your arms like you're going crazy, going crazy like on TV if you take
Hmm.
if you take some medicine. So yes, I feel like I have a responsibility, and I enjoy it. Like when I have black clients, or even in the community, if there's a black organization saying, "Hey, come be part of our panel." I'm like, hell yeah. Just because I feel like there's not a lot of black male therapists in general. And so I feel like it's very rare that you see us, because to every 20 to every 20 black female therapists, you might have three or four black male therapists. So uh, I take pride in that, in educating black people one on one, or even if it's something like this. Clearly, I know
Hmm.
more than black people watch your thing, but even if it's something like this, or being a part of a panel, I feel like it's important to kind of say, go get help. I help you find the resources. Here's a list of YouTube videos.
Hmm. Do you do a lot of work like that in the community, like going on panels and going speaking to like schools and stuff like that?
Yeah, I do a lot of like during COVID, and I know we're talking about COVID later, but during COVID, since everything was virtual, I did a lot of workshops through Zoom, being a part of a lot of panels on how to manage anxiety in the community. Before COVID, yes, I did a lot of in-person like workshops. I remember doing like a educational thing about sexual health for a church.
Hmm.
That's why I'm grateful for my background, because I can talk about sexual health, I can talk about mental health, I can talk about. So I've done things with churches, I've done things with different organizations in the community, uh, educating them on mental health, on depression, and stuff like that.
One thing I always appreciated about you, not just because we cousins and we used to whoop ass in basketball or whatever. You always like, even if it's something not popular, you don't mind speaking out
Mhm.
about issues. Like for example, like Arkansas has been trying to, roll back healthcare on like trans youth and LGBTQ, and stuff like that is just for somebody just to do something like that just blows
Mhm.
my mind. Do people like in the community like look to you for like advice when stuff like, because I don't know how the laws are in Texas, because obviously I'm not in Texas, but do people like like come to you when, do you find people are depressed and come and look at you as sort of like a beacon of hope, sort of say?
Yeah, they do, and I would try to tell people, like, listen, like, because of ethical reasons, I'm not your counselor,
Yeah.
right? But I try to lead them. Yes, so people will inbox me and say, "Hey, I'm looking for a black therapist. I don't know where to go." So I like, here's some resources. I do that all the time, especially
Okay.
if they live in the DFW area. Here's some black therapists. Uh, if they're like, "Hey, I want to know more about anger issues," I know a website you can go to. If I don't have the answer, I'm like, hold up, I got a lot of therapist friends. Let me
Yeah.
go to this Facebook group real quick and get you the answers. So yeah, people are always inboxing me and asking me about resources. One thing that's great about a city like Dallas, that they have a lot of resources if you don't have insurance, right? So a lot of people who are like, hey, I think my sister needs medicine, but I don't know where, I don't know where she could go. Basically, I'm like,
Mhm.
listen, here in Dallas, you can go da 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 da, and you don't have to have insurance. So I love being able to give people those resources, give people even advice. Like, if this is what I think about it,
Mhm.
and helping them out. Yeah.
Does the insurance with stuff like that work similar to like health insurance? Is that, because I know mental health is getting better, but it's still sort of like people don't know about it. So does insurance sort of like work the same way?
Yeah, I think, and just like physical, like medical insurance, it's about the package you choose, right?
Okay.
You're like,
Okay.
like when you get a job, it's like, with this package, you get, we pay for 80% of this and 70% of this, and mental
Hmm.
health of this. And so a lot of times people, and I have done it too. We look more to, okay, medical, vision, dental. We never even ask questions about, well, let me ask HR about mental health,
Yeah.
about
Yeah. Yeah.
office visits to the psychiatrist or counselor, or if I have to go inpatient, meaning if something's going on where I have to be admitted into a mental health facility, That's like that's like being admitted to like a regular hospital. How much do y'all pay for behavioral health stuff?
Mhm.
Uh, because sometimes that falls a little bit under medical, but a lot of times we don't ask those questions. You know,
Yeah.
it's about medical, dental, vision,
Yeah.
my 401k, and people tend to forget, especially if they're not dealing with ongoing mental health challenges. Where like I've been to a therapist plenty of times before, so I know I need to ask about this. If they're not
Mhm.
thinking that, a lot of times they don't think to ask until they end up going and like, oh, my plans suck when it comes to behavioral health, right? And so I think it's good to start asking when you are choosing your plan every year. If you with the same company and it's time to you to re-enroll, or if it's a new job, like look into like you know uh what does this plan look like if I have to use behavioral health services.
Yeah, one thing I liked about my last employer was like they had partnered with some, I forgot the name of the company, but
Hmm.
you could get up to like 6 free sessions. And then
Mm,
after that you had to, obviously pay for it. But I mean they gave you 6 free sessions. You just had to call a number and you could
hmm,
either do it, in person or, virtually. So that was
hmm.
that was pretty cool. And that's something that, a lot of people seem to take advantage of. Do you so as a society, do you feel like we're getting better at sort of identifying like mental health conditions?
Yeah, I think like look at like the last 20 years, right? The last 20 years we've had MySpace and Facebook and Facebook from '04 to now 17 years later. Look how much improvement. You have all
Yep.
type of Facebook group. Like you can find a Facebook group for anything. Oh, in this group we talk about knitting. It's like it's a
Yeah.
group for everything. So I think because of access to social media, you have like right now, like on Instagram, I follow a ton of like mental health pages from mental health blogs. You have there's different podcasts that speak only about mental health. It's
Hmm.
so much information. Like right now, if you go to YouTube and you type in self-esteem, there's so many like videos from like psychologists and doctors and advocates that's talking about self-esteem. Like
Hmm.
there's access to so much information versus 20, 30, 40 years ago. So I think we definitely have improved when it comes to getting information. um I think you see way more people, and especially people of color, like majoring and graduating and becoming social workers and counselors and psychologists and psychiatrists. So more people are majoring in that. More people are focusing on that. So I think it's gotten way better in the last 20, 30 years.
Yeah,
Uh,
that's good. That's really good. 'Cause I mean, it's like you said. A lot of times people were scared to talk about, and a lot of it was the fear of like gossiping too. Like
yeah,
if they
yeah.
tell somebody, they're gonna go and tell this whole other group, and then you show up at church or at the grocery store and be like, oh, there goes such and such. They
Mhm.
they're crazy.
Right,
They got this going on.
right. And I think now, because of social media, because of all this, and because of like, let's be honest, a lot of celebrities have talked about it. We know
Yeah.
celebrities have influence, and so you have a lot of people over the years who've talked about getting help, who've talked about they try to hurt themselves,
Mhm.
and so you have all this influence uh, that people are now being more open about it, and more people, and now you're not looked at as, oh, you're crazy. It's like, oh, they got something going on. Good for them for getting help. So I think it's getting better. I think, you know, as long as we keep pushing the conversations, keep educating, I think it'll continue. I think no matter what, you're always gonna have stigma.
Mhm.
You're always gonna have people who feel like especially different cultures feel like mental health doesn't exist, and I don't think that's ever gonna go away. But I think over the years we've gotten way better, especially I can say here in the United States.
Yeah, and back a few years ago, like if you did, speak out, you would almost get bullied. And then,
Right.
but now, like if you speak out and tell people when somebody does try to bully you, other people will come for them. Be like, hey, you don't
Yeah.
know what they're going through. Kind of like with the tennis player. What's her name? Naomi Osaka.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, I need to take a break, and you
But
know,
let's hit on that real quick. Back to like the black males, but black people, they don't want to believe us.
hmm
If that was a white Caucasian tennis player,
yeah,
she or he would have got so much empathy. And I know that's a road I want to go down that hole, but it's true. It's
yeah,
like her being a person of color. She's black. She's a black woman, and she's half was it Japanese? I forgot. She's half Asian.
Yeah, yeah.
It's like all this ridicule. Now she's speaking up, saying, "I'm taking a break. I'm sitting out of some of these tournaments because of this."
Mm-hmm.
Oh, but if it's a white person, it's been oh good for you. You got great courage. It's like
Yep.
you want to bash her for the most part. Of course, the media is a different story.
Mm-hmm.
But if she had committed suicide, then like, oh my gosh, I can't believe. Well,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
she's trying to do some she's trying to do some preventative stuff and take time out. But yeah, more like I said, more people are speaking up like her, and people and a lot of people I saw like celebrities, black celebrities that were coming to her defense. Like, good job, like
Mm-hmm.
forget the money, forget like because if something's wrong, because if you get hurt, the money won't matter no way.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up because that's something that it really sort of like it kind of pisses me off in a way because you'll see and I posted about this on Facebook the other day and I was specifically talking about me and I was saying people pretend they care about mental health but most of the time is when it's convenient or when it's too late. They'll ignore all these signs, but then when someone commits suicide, then it's like, oh, I should have been there or I should have done such and such, and all the signs were there, but you chose not to, not to help. Not saying a lot of people intentionally do that, but a lot of people just especially with a case like Naomi, like she's rich, so people are like, oh,
She's fine.
her
Mhm.
money is, that makes up for it. It's no
Mhm.
big deal.
Yeah, and like you said, and like I think just from, of course, clearly I don't know her, but from her, from what she said, her press thing was like, I've always dealt with anxiety. Money can't
Hmm.
fix that shit.
Exactly,
Now,
exactly.
money can get her access to help, but money doesn't make the anxiety go away. And
Yeah,
I
yeah.
think more and more people realize money doesn't make the depression go away. Like,
Hmm.
it may make you happy in that moment. Like, oh, I went out and I went on a vacation real quick because I had money. It made me feel better in the moment. But if I'm dealing with some serious depression,
Hmm.
money doesn't make that go away. Just like
Yeah,
money doesn't make diabetes go away. You have to
exactly.
do something about it.
And plus, I've seen like on social media and stuff, she gets attacked a lot of times from the black community because they say she does more for like the Japanese community than she does the black. I remember I forgot who it was went on the Breakfast Club talking about she didn't do this for the black community, but then she was building like a school for girls in Haiti to learn how to play tennis.
Right.
Like who the hell else is going
Right.
to do it?
Right. Because I don't got the money to do it. Shit.
Shit, yeah, me
Yeah.
neither. Trying to get there though.
Yeah. So I think people just like, again, people, and sometimes again we don't go down the rabbit hole, but sometimes it be your own people sometimes as well, right?
Hey
But
man,
it's like
you don't mind going down that rabbit hole. Let's go.
it's like we have to support. If our black sister is saying, "I have anxiety, I have this," who cares in that moment if she's building schools or she's helping her Japanese sisters and brothers more than her black people.
Hmm.
We should focus on her getting help.
Yep.
That's a different conversation,
Hmm.
right? Let's focus on her getting help, right? If then again you want to critique what she doing with her own money, but that's another story. You're like,
Yeah,
that's
yeah,
her. She done work, she done trained for years, and she done went through all this to make her millions. But I gotta critique that she doing stuff for her
hmm,
Japanese. And,
yep,
you know what I'm saying? Like, that's at this point, her mental health is important. Her
yep.
being well, it has like I don't care nothing about what she doing for this or that. I want her to be well because she's my black sister, right? And so it's like sometimes we just lose focus on what's important in the moment. If you want to critique her about that, let's do that later.
Hmm.
Why bring that up now when we having the conversation about mental health? Nothing
Yeah.
else should matter about only that.
And a lot of times when people look at like athletes and entertainers, they don't realize that they're real people. So like if you
Right.
play tennis, like people want you only to play tennis just for your entertainment, but you don't care about their, what anything else they got going on, which is sad because I tell people all the time, when back when the whole like when Colin Kaepernick, did the national, kneel for the anthem and stuff, people was like, well, I don't want politics in, in my football, whatever. And I was like, well, if you're a plumber, you got an opinion about politics. What if somebody say, well, I don't want to hear your opinion. Go fix my sink.
Right.
You get pissed off. These people have real issues just because they're athletes and entertainers.
right. I feel like the actor was it 25, 20 some years ago that committed suicide, Mr. Doubtfire.
Oh, Robin Williams.
Yeah, my mom was like, people forget like my gifting is my gifting.
Yeah,
It has
yeah.
nothing to do with my mental health spectrum,
Mm-hmm.
right? Like sometimes I could be the most gifted, I could have been presented with the most greatest opportunities, but still be lonely. You like Michelle Williams from Destiny's Child, like she just
Mm-hmm.
came out. She been promoting her book for the last 5 months, and it finally came out in May. And she
Okay.
talked about she talked about that and how back in in the mid like 2004 or five when she was going through her depression, it's like you are you was just some girl no one knew in Chicago. Now you stand beside Beyonce and you're making millions. What the you mean you depressed? That has
Yeah,
nothing to do with it.
yeah,
You know
yeah.
what I'm saying? Some stuff is some stuff is just chronic. Like I just wake up fucking depressed. It has nothing to do. My kids are healthy. My wife is blessed. It has nothing to do with stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Something mentally is going on why I need to see somebody. So like you said, like people like Robin and Robin Williams, people like Michelle Williams that's like I mean Beyonce your best friend. You
Yeah.
like you eat lunch with Jay-Z them. What you mean you depressed? What that got to do with anything? I got all these Grammys and I still want to hurt myself. You know what I'm
Mm-hmm.
saying? Like she was talking about that. So I think people forget. Let's put human first. Money and gifts and talent, all those are great. Clearly, we all want money. We all want to be gifted in something. Those things have a place, but if I'm not mentally well, those don't mean shit,
Exactly.
right?
So speaking of something that's is plagued a lot of people's mental health, good old pandemic, COVID-19. Man,
Right.
I don't think we got another surge here in Arkansas. I don't know if we're ever gonna get rid of this. But so how has that affected you personally, and also some of your clients that you see on a pretty consistent basis?
No, just like I might have education and a gifting to be a therapist, but again, well, I'm human. And I remember like last year I was working for a college university and they sent us home. I remember last March. And I was like, I'm thinking about I can't believe it's been over like 16, 17 months ago. It's like just being super nervous. Of course, it's like immediately shelter in place in Dallas and nothing was open and like if you got up in the morning to go to Walmart, the hallways were empty. It's like the fucking plague.
Yeah,
Like
yeah, yeah.
like it was like stuff that you see out of a movie, right? And I remember just being like everybody else being nervous, having my own anxiety. It's like every time I'm in Walmart, I'm just like, hopefully no droplets get through my mask. You like I dealt with my own anxiety, my own fear, right? This whole fear based uh of being sick and like sometimes in the middle of the night, like, okay, am I breathing? Like, my chest hurt? And do I
Yeah.
got something? Like, okay, it's April, just allergies, right? But still,
Hmm.
like, dealing with my own mental stuff and my own fear, it's still having to be a therapist. So I'm still having to like clock in at the university. Now we're working from home. I'm still doing therapy and still making sure that I'm okay mentally.
Hmm.
So it was a challenge, and then of course my patients dealing with the same stuff. Some of them had severe anxiety. Like I don't want to leave my house. Period. I get my groceries delivered. Thank God for technology, right? I get
Yeah,
my
yeah,
groceries delivered. Uh, and then when the world kind of opened up last summer and more last fall, people really had fear about like going hanging out to like on family Thanksgivings because they hear all these stories on the news was like, oh, folks went home for Thanksgiving, they came back and had COVID. So people were like patient and people were really scared to go back to work and go back to deal with family. So there's a lot of fear,
hmm
uh, anxiety, and then depression. A lot of people lost their jobs,
yeah, yeah,
right? A lot of people lost their jobs. So uh, now I'm dealing with like now I don't have any money or they my job furloughed me. So
hmm
a lot of people just across the world just went through a lot of shit last year and
yeah.
continue to deal with anxiety because of COVID. Yeah.
Yeah, it was wild, man. Because I like right around the time I left, Children's to go do my own business. That's like right when everything like shut down.
Right.
Like those first couple months, man. I because I'm not really a people person, So I was chilling, man. Like those first 2 months,
Yeah.
I was like, this is great. What is it? That's around the time, those first stimulus checks came out. Uh, Tiger King was on Netflix.
Right.
My wife was at home. Charlie was like, it was fun. Then around like the summertime, I was like, man, this shit is real. Like, I don't know if it's ever,
Right.
because I was thinking, maybe a month or two, it'll be,
Right.
we'll figure it out. But then, I mean, you look, like you said, 17 months later, we're still in it.
Yeah. Now,
Wow.
a lot of people I know got addicted to the news, right? Because I know, like when I would watch CNN, CNN would have on the TV the amount of deaths that day. So it will go from like 100,000 in the beginning to like 200,000. Of course, that brings fear because I'm constantly watching the
Mhm.
news. So I was having to try to teach patients and teach this, or just people or talk to people I know. Like you have to limit some of that. Like you know what? Clearly, you need to be informed. I'm only gonna watch the news 30 minutes in the mornings and
Yep.
30 minutes at night. Because you keep that in because basically when you're working from home, you keep that CNN or whatever as white noise, background noise, and you
Mhm.
always looking up, seeing the deaths, and deaths and deaths. It's like that is not good for your psyche.
Yeah.
Uh, and a lot of people dealt with not just fear and anxiety and depression, but relationship stuff. Like I'm at home with my spouse, with my partner all day. I'm at home with my kids all day. And like I had a person tell me, I need a break from my kid. Like I love my kid, but we need a break. Like
Mhm.
like just because you're a parent, you are human first. And you're not some super person where my kid never gets on my nerves or my no,
Yeah. Yeah.
no, that's real life. And now I'm at home with my husband, with my wife, and my kids all day. And so a lot of people had to go to therapy or do something to kind
A
of
lot of people got divorced,
yeah, that's
which
true.
blew my mind, man. Like you didn't know your spouse. Like you didn't, like yeah, I can deal with you for 4 hours a day, but not 18 hours a day.
Yeah, yeah,
That was wild, man. Like I said, we're still like cases are steady, rising here in Arkansas. I don't know Texas, y'all never did. Y'all act like nothing happened down there.
right. Like my best friend, my best friend says, like we still like now that it's open, it's like there's no turning back. But yeah, even like last summer, even when there was shelter in place, people
Hmm.
still, wouldn't wear a mask and people still going to house parties. It's like,
Yeah.
oh, we can quarantine. Quarantine me at your damn house, not at a house party with 50 people. But, you know,
Did
people
you get
don't,
the vaccine?
oh, hell yeah. Yeah.
Did you have any side effects?
Luckily I didn't. A lot of my coworkers had like a little fever. A lot of my friends did like a 12-hour thing.
Man,
But
that second one got me.
yeah, most people like it was the second
Yeah,
one.
that
Yeah.
second one got me. I got it on like a Tuesday, and on that Wednesday, I was pretty sick. By Thursday, I was fine, but because we were leaving and going to the beach like that on that Friday, so I was trying to, hopefully my sickness went away before I went to the beach, and thankfully it did.
Yeah, I did. I just feel like, to each his own, whatever you want to believe, you believe. But I feel like some of the stories I've heard, some of the stories I've seen, people in our own family that was
Hmm.
positive. My mom and brother had COVID. It's like uh, I'm not. If I could prevent it, because I done got all the other vaccines all my life. I ain't trying to be on a ventilator. That not in no 37. I'm not. I ain't trying to be on one. Period. But not when I can do something about it. And then plus my job, like I work around clients, uh, and I want to start living. Like if I want to go on vacation, I want to be able like, okay, I'm protected at least 95%, right? I'm good. I'm good. And so personally I did. I don't got time to be because like my brother got it, my mom got it. They had all the symptoms. They had the diarrhea, and like the my homeboy, he couldn't like literally he felt like okay, this is it. Like
Yeah,
his pneumonia, his breathing was so bad. No.
that's
I
just
was like,
scary to think
I
about.
like give me the shot.
Mhm. Yeah, that's crazy, man. It's
And personally, it has helped my mental health. Like I feel like if I run into a smoothie place without a mask, I'm not like like I feel like I'm vaccinated. I can run in here real quick.
mhm.
I can go to CVS. CVS don't have a whole bunch of people like a Walmart. I can go to CVS real quick without a mask. It has gave me such a peace, and my anxiety levels way versus 'cause I got mine in January versus last year when I was so nervous all the time, especially if I had to go somewhere.
Yeah, like I just like for real, up until about like last August, I didn't go anywhere. Like
Hmm
I was at home. Like a lot of people say they were at home, but I was like home for real. Like I didn't do it. I didn't do like I went to Locksburg to see my folks last August for the first time like that whole year. They were like, man, we didn't think you was ever gonna get out. I wasn't planning on it. Hey,
like I'll go out to a grocery store, maybe to a doctor's appointment, something I just have to
yeah,
go to. Like if my baby needs something, my wife needs something, but just be going just to kick it. I kick it with y'all. We done did enough kicking pre-COVID. Like
exactly.
I'll see y'all again.
And then every time I went, like after that, they would always say, "Hey, you might want to go get tested. Such and such got COVID." I'm like, "What the hell?"
Right, right,
They was saying so casual too. I'm like,
right.
That's you said at the beginning of a phone call. That ain't nothing you. Oh yeah, at the end of the call. Oh yeah, before we get off, such and such had COVID. I'm like, whoa, whoa.
And that was the like the mental health, the anxiety part, because once I started going back to work a little bit last fall, like and just before the vaccines, like I would go to work, my part-time job, I go to hospitals,
Okay.
mask on, have my little face shield, all that, go see patients, and like 2 days later, the front office would call me like, oh, that patient that you saw, even though you wore the mask and face shield, FYI, when you left, they did a COVID test and they were positive. So now I'm nervous for the next 10 days until my results come back. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
Like doing that like once a month, that shit is anxiety. Like, okay,
absolutely.
because you like, here we go. I don't know how it's gonna affect my body. Do I got it or not got it? So
Hmm.
thankfully, it always came back negative. But like, you're right. Like just getting that phone call, like, oh, I know you were around this person. FYI. Well,
Yeah,
like damn.
yeah, yeah. And then your mind will play crazy tricks on you too. Like
Right.
you will mess around and think you got the worst of everything. I remember when back last year when Chadwick Boseman like passed away. Like that was crazy to me. Him
Mhm.
dying of like, because I mean we didn't even know he was sick,
Right.
Then
Right.
like as soon as he died and they said what he died from, like all of a sudden my stomach started hurting. I'm like, oh man, is this I need to go
Bro,
get it checked out. You know what I'm saying? Like your mind is crazy, play tricks on you.
it does. It does. And you have to like, I will tell you, like, use some of those coping skills. Like, okay, I'm being irrational.
Hmm.
It's all just fear based. Let
Yep,
me let me bring myself back down to rational level.
yep. So what's something you want to do in the future? If the Markel Jordan, 5, 10 years from now looks back at this interview, like what's something you've hoped that you've accomplished?
Okay. First of all, I want to say, people who are listening, if you hear something in the background, they cutting grass outside. That's the downside of apartment living. So if y'all hear something in the background, I'm sorry.
I ain't heard
Uh,
anything.
okay. I think if I got these headphones on.
No.
Uh, but in the future, I want to do. I want, and I'm putting it out here in the atmosphere so I can not be lazy
Speak
and
it
do
into
it.
existence, man. Speak it
Yeah,
into existence.
I want to do like consulting, like have my own consulting business. I don't want to do private practice. I never wanted to like do private practice. That's a lot of work. Uh, I want to do because my true passion is what I'm doing now. If I could do this, like if I could get my clientele up and have my own like business, and I could do like educational stuff like this, I could do this without sweating. It's fun for me. Uh, if I could, so that's my dream. Like in the next 5, 6 years, if I could have a consulting business, have a Facebook page, do some consulting, have a name, and do like nothing. It's what we call psycho education in the mental health world, like educating people about the psych, about mental health. Doing whether it's like stuff like this one-on-one on podcasts, whether it's doing presentations for companies, right?
Okay.
Because a lot, what I found out over the years, a lot of companies are recognizing mental health and stress of a job. If I'm stressed at work, if my boss or my employer is not acknowledging stress, if they're not promoting self care in my job, you get burnout. You get all this high turnover rate. So a lot of companies are bringing in professionals to do workshops and all that. So if I could do stuff like that, go into churches,
Hmm.
go into like YMCA during the summertime and talk to teenagers about suicide. Like that's my dream, is doing consulting.
Yeah, that would be perfect, especially for the job thing, because jobs don't recognize. I'm glad they're doing it more, but a lot of times they're clueless when it comes to mental health.
Right,
What's
right,
going on? You
right. You the problem.
Yeah, it's like, yeah, I'm burnt out from you, but you can't say that to your boss, obviously, because
Right.
need that check coming in. So yeah,
Right.
that's
So,
good.
yeah, a lot of jobs are starting to. I've seen them here and there. They're starting to acknowledge that people need time off. Like, don't like. I feel like it's what I call violence, and not, of course, not physical violence, but the way you operate and handle me can be violent, right?
Hmm.
Meaning you punish me for taking my own PTO.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
So I got PTO, and the rules say, as long as I let you know in low 2 weeks in advance, whatever the rule is, I
Hmm.
let you know that, but you approve it, but you put more work on me on purpose.
Yeah,
It's like
yeah.
you're punishing me, like that's violence, right? And so I think that's when you abuse people, and you think it's not abuse, like, oh, it's
Mhm.
part of the job, it just worked. No, you got mad because I took off, so now
Yep.
you are, so like I think companies start recognizing people, like give people their PTO. That's it's to use. That's what it's for.
I remember I was at this place and my son was sick. And he had been sick, when kids are, little, they get anything. And, first time parents, you take them to the doctor and whatever. So,
Right.
I took him to the doctor like the week before, but we had to go again like that next week. And my boss wasn't going to let me off to take my son to work. I'm like, that's my son.
Right.
And I'm
Right.
going. And she was saying, like, oh, well, we need you here to do such and such. I'm like, I don't care. Fire me. Go explain to whoever that you're gonna fire me because I took my son to work. I want to be in the room for that conversation. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Needless to say, I took him. But yeah, like small stuff like that. Like you said, that's abusive to tell somebody, no, you
Right.
can take your kid to work because I need you here to do something that's probably can be done any other time if we're being honest about it.
Right. I think, and I think, luckily I've had good companies over the years who really like honor, like taking off and honor, like, I can't help that I don't feel good, or I luckily I've had companies, maybe because I work in mental health, but I've had companies tell me, like, I would say, you know what, I need a day. I need a mental health day.
Yep.
This job is too much this week. It's been a crazy week. I just need tomorrow. Okay,
Hmm.
well, we'll see you next day. And I know everybody don't got a job like that, but I feel like when you, like you said, when your boss, when you act like I can't take off because my kid's sick,
Hmm.
your response would be like, okay, take care of your son, come in later, or we'll see you tomorrow. That should be the only response,
Yep.
you know, versus you giving me a hard time. To me, that's abusive. And so I
That's why
think,
I'm a big advocate for the 4 day work week. You know what I'm
yes,
saying? Work your ass off those 4 days, but those other three, hey, do what you got to do. I'm a
right.
big, I hope more companies, go to that. So how can people, listening to this, how can they get in touch with you if they have more questions about or want to get in touch with you?
Yeah, so I always tell people, you can just always follow my Instagram, and usually inbox me. My Instagram is Uncle Marky 123.
Mark. Okay.
Again, Uncle Marky 123. Uh, and if you're not a patient of mine, I'll I will accept you. Uh, I always tell people, another thing is, and I want to say this before we go. Start somewhere. I know if you've never been to therapy, and you have these concerns, or even if you had a bad experience with therapy before, it's
Hmm.
scary, right? The thought that, okay, I know I kind of been dealing with like intense mood swings. I might have bipolar. I don't want to diagnose myself, but something's not right. But I'm scared to take medicine. I'm scared, but if I take that medicine, what that would mean, that I'm crazy and I don't want to. I know that it all can be overwhelming, right? But start somewhere. If you don't
Yeah.
want to do therapy right now, if you don't want to do, okay, you know what? I'm going to at least watch a YouTube video every day on how to manage my emotions.
Yeah.
Because YouTube has all type of videos from, like, again, from counselors, psychologists, all this type of like psychoeducation is online. I'm going to at least do that. That's going to be part of my meditation every day for 20 minutes. I'm going to watch some type of podcast video about depression, just to start somewhere. Uh, you know, from that, grow from that. After that, you know what? I think I might be, if I have the insurance, if I live somewhere where they have access to something that's not expensive, I'm gonna try out therapy after I do like the videos and psychoeducation. If you go to Google, if you go to Amazon right now and type in how to beat depression or depression, there's 100 books, thousands of books on how to do this, how to deal with depression while you're a parent. Like there's all types of stuff now. So there's really no excuse. So just start somewhere. Start there. Then build yourself up to, let me go to a therapist. Let me go maybe to a psychiatrist to talk about, maybe I need medicine, maybe I don't. Let me go get an evaluation. But start somewhere. And the only time you don't start right here is if you're thinking about killing yourself. At that point, don't read a book. You need to call and get help, whether it's call a friend so that friend can take you somewhere. Call, if you Google suicide hotlines in your area or the national suicide crisis line, if you Google that, the number will pop up. I will say, if you feel comfortable, 911 is supposed to help you, but we know Black people in 911. So I always say, if you feel comfortable, because again, more than Black people watch your podcast, I know that. So but some people don't feel comfortable with the police and mental health anyway. But if you're a person of color and you're watching this, if you feel comfortable, you can call 911 and explain what's going on. If you don't, again, call a friend and say, hey, I think I might need to go to a mental health facility, or call like the suicide hotline.
Yeah, call that hotline.
Besides suicide or or homicide, think about hurting yourself, killing other people, having intense hearing voices, psychosis. Besides that, depression, anger, all that, mood swings, start somewhere if you feel like therapy is too much for me right now.
Man, so are you I remember a while back you said you were thinking about working on your PhD. Is that something that's still on the table, or
maybe? When I started, I did one semester, but I had 3 jobs because I was trying to get all my intern hours. I just couldn't do it all. And so I think about it, and then some days I'll be like, I ain't trying to write another damn paper.
Getting your PhD, what would that allow you to do that you can't do now?
Usually teach at the college level. This is what I had to learn. I had a friend, and he didn't do it on purpose, but he had a PhD in engineering. And it's not that many Black men have PhDs. You should get it. And this is what I learned. Don't get something just because. It needs to be, because I did one semester, borrowed $5,000 worth of loan, and I had to pay that back. And I didn't finish. And I really did it because I ain't gonna say I was peer pressure because I'm grown, but I was influenced. I was a grown ass man being peer pressure. I was influenced. Like, okay, I guess I get one, and it wasn't really a passion. Now I'm 37. In a few years, if I feel like, you know what, I think it might advance my career. Let me go on back. That's different. And so right now, I don't have a passion for it. I think I'm doing everything that I want to do with having the master's and the license. If I ever feel like, okay, I hit this block in my career where like this would really throw me out there into a different, then I will.
Yeah, that sounds good, man. That peer pressure, man. Don't let it get to you, man. But I appreciate you joining me, man. It's been a while since we talked, man. So
I know I think, and because of COVID, and you living in Central Arkansas, I ain't seen you probably pre-COVID, probably in person.
Probably have already. That was in 2017.
No, we had a family reunion in 2018. I saw you in 2018. We had a family reunion.
I don't even remember the family reunion.
Yeah, we just didn't have it in 2020, of course. But that probably was the last time I saw you. Yeah.
But man, when this stuff get under control, man, we got to get together and have some drinks, man.
I'm ready.
You being a mental health advocate, you may take drinking off your plate. You don't drink no more, do you?
Everything in modification. Like long as they know it's inside joke, long as they know gin, I can do it.
I'm more of a wine, I'm red wine. That's what I pretty much drink now. Red wine and whiskey.
Oh, I can't do no brown.
That stuff, you don't try to overdo it.
Wine and probably whiskey. You do it for the chill, a little taste.
You respect that wine and that hard alcohol. But
I think the older I've gotten, the whole like first of all, my recovery time takes,
yeah.
and so like at 37, I'm maybe 38, I ain't trying to every weekend be like, nah.
Yeah.
I drink to have I drink to have a chill feeling, have a little buzz with friends,
Yeah.
but all this like feeling sick and that, nah, that ain't about. I ain't about that.
Waking up with a hangover with a 2-year-old, that'll humble your ass real quick.
Yeah, I'll get imagine.
Yeah. But yeah, man, I appreciate you you coming on, man.
No
And yeah,
problem.
let's get together soon.
No problem. Thank you. I'm proud of you. You know, you a boss. I was like, oh, he a boss now. So yeah, I'm proud of you, and I'm grateful. So anytime you want me to come back for something else, let me know.
Oh yeah, I hit you up. You know, I'm trying to get all this knowledge.
Okay. All right. Appreciate it, sir.
All right, man. Have a good weekend.
All right. Have a good one.
Yeah, that was Markel Jordan, licensed mental health therapist. If you like this episode, like, subscribe, share. This has been the Bell Wellness Experience, episode 15. We'll see you later.